have a very fun show on tap for everyone. A Dolphins 53-man roster projection from no one else but Omar Kelly of the Miami Herald. He dropped his own 53-man roster projection, and I wanted to take a look at it before we get into official training camp. Yeah, rookies have reported, but we have not seen veterans, and that's when training camp really gets underway here. So let's take a look at what he had to say. But before we do that, follow me over at Twitter. At Nic_Rohloff is the handle. We continue to grow on the Twitterverse every single day. Daily Dolphins coverage. We'll have Miami Dolphins training camp highlights as well, and clips and news, notes, interviews. We'll have it all. Follow me today if you want to stay updated on the Miami Dolphins. 800 away about until we get to 2K. Let's get there before the football season, baby. All right, let's start with the QB projection. And we're going to showcase, by the way, numbers on 53 just because you're going to see why at the end of today's show. But he projected 2 quarterbacks to make the team. Obviously, Tua Tagovailoa and Mike White earns that second QB spot, which is kind of surprising that he is cutting both Skylar Thompson and Gavin Hardison. Hardison, UDFA out of UTEP, obviously long shot, would have to be unbelievable in training camp and during the preseason to earn a roster spot, but could be a practice squad type guy. I was a little shocked that he ultimately cut one of the 2 quarterbacks, and it being Skylar Thompson. Why? Because I think Thompson and White are very similar in their abilities on the football field, yet Skylar Thompson is about $2.5 million cheaper in cap space for the Dolphins. You also don't need to keep a third guy full-time as the new rules in the NFL. Like, you can have a limited practice squad call-ups, so a third quarterback on the 53-man roster is not officially needed anymore, which is why Skylar Thompson could be cut. But if it's me personally, and we're looking at it right now, I would go with Skylar Thompson over Mike White, but that's why we're reacting to Omar Kelly's, and this isn't mine, because I would have a different story. Let's move over to the running backs now, where we have a little bit of an intriguing one as well. Raheem Mostert, Achane, and Jaylen Wright are obviously your top 3, but he ultimately kept 4 here, and his 4th RB, Jeff Wilson Jr., which means he's cutting Chris Brooks and Salvon Ahmed. I'm fine cutting Salvon Ahmed, kind of done with the experience, if you will, but I would rather keep Chris Brooks over Jeff Wilson Jr. I just don't think there's a role for Jeff Wilson because these are going to be your top 3 backs, right? So why keep a veteran who isn't going to give you any special teams value and you already know who he is as a running back as your 4th guy? Like, I'd rather go with a younger player like Brooks who can also grow in the special teams department and just provide more value to your team and not just your running back room, but the entire roster. Let's move over to the wide receivers now, where honestly, this is what I've had projected for a while now. Tyreek Hill is the clear-cut number 1, Waddle 2, OBJ 3. He has Berrios and Malik Washington both making the team, which I think is a formality as well. But out of the ashes of the battle between Eric Ezukanma, River Cracraft, and Taj Washington, Omar Kelly projects River Cracraft to get that final spot, which is what I have projected as well. It's going to be interesting to see who ends up getting the 6th and final wide receiver spot between Cracraft, Ezukanma, and Taj Washington. Now, if you're watching this live on our Tuesday live show when we're filming this, you would know Taj Washington is out indefinitely with an injury. If you're watching this for the first time on Friday, no issue, but there's your update. So TW might not be the best option here, folks, because Washington might not be able to get a full range of reps and playing time in this Dolphins training camp and preseason with an injury he suffered earlier on in minicamp and OTAs, as reported by Barry Jackson. So it might just be a 2-horse race for that final and 6th wide receiver spot between Ezukanma and Cracraft. Let me know who you want it to be. I know a lot of people are fans of Easy E, so I might see a lot of EEs down below, but Kelly has RC, and I kind of lean RC as well. Let's get to the tight ends here, where he has 4 tight ends. Really 3. He put Alec Ingold in the tight end room as well, which is fine by me because you know he's going to be on the roster. But this is where I really have my biggest gripe of the day, because Jonnu Smith, Durham Smythe, and Julian Hill are the 3 tight ends that Omar Kelly has making the roster. And I just simply don't agree with him cutting Jody Fortson Jr. Fortson has been your second best tight end this offseason. Jonnu Smith, after being signed in free agency, after getting cut by the Atlanta Falcons, has been your number one. But all reports out of minicamp and OTAs is how impressive Jody Fortson was in the pass game. And to me, I think he needs to be on this roster. So I am cutting one of Durham Smythe or Julian Hill. It's the matter of which one you would rather prefer to keep. Hill's the better blocker, more strong. Smythe is a better receiving guy. But hey, if you already have Jonnu Smith and Jody Fortson, maybe you end up cutting Durham Smythe because you need more of a blocking tight end as your third guy. But not having Jody Fortson on your 53-man roster projection just feels inaccurate. I know it's his opinion, but that's why I'm reacting to it, because I have my own opinion. I think Fortson's going to make this team. Let's get to the O-line now, because he had an intriguing cut name as well. He keeps 9. Teron Armstead, Austin Jackson, Aaron Brewer, Isaiah Wynn, Liam Eichenberg, Robert Jones, Kendall Lamb, Patrick Paul, and Jack Driscoll, which leaves Lester Cotton on the outside looking in of this Dolphins roster, which I actually have no issue with that, but I also find it intriguing that there is a real possibility that Lester Cotton ends up being off this 53-man roster when we look at the final one in late August, early September. I also think there's a world where Lester Cotton, is the starting right guard. Like, it is going to be a competition between Robert Jones, Jack Driscoll, Lester Cotton, Liam Eichenberg. If Cotton is the best one, he could be the starting right guard. If he isn't, he could be off this roster. It's going to be very intriguing, the decisions that this team makes, and it's why on our video just a couple days ago that we said the starting right guard position battle is the number one that we're going to have to watch during Dolphins training camp and preseason, because it's the biggest hole on this Dolphins roster. Make sure you are subscribed, because we're going to have Dolphins videos every single day, but we're also trying to defeat the Eagles channel here at Chat Sports in our sub battle. And it is an absolute battle with just about 10 days to go in the month of July. We trail by 7. Let's make it up here. Hit that sub button. Beat Eagles now, but also you're just helping yourself become the most informed Dolphins fan on the planet. 6 edge rushers make the team, according to Omar Kelly. Jalen Phillips, Bradley Chubb, Shaq Barrett, Chop Robinson, Mohamed Kamara, and Cameron Good. There really should be no surprise here. The top 5 kind of feel like a lock. I wouldn't be surprised if Good, who is also returning from injury and is banged up, doesn't make this team altogether, but keeping an extra body there with the uncertainty of Jalen Phillips and Bradley Chubb's injury return kind of makes sense as well. Let's move over to another stunning development here on the defensive tackle projection from Omar Kelly. Your top 2 are guaranteed: Zach Sealer, Calais Campbell. But after that, I have no clue who's going to make this team. Tier Tart, Deshaun Hand, Jonathan Harris, Benito Jones, and Neville Gallimore are all going to be fighting for roster spots, but not one of them has a guaranteed spot on this Dolphins team. And I also think keeping 7 defensive tackles is a little bit nuts for a team that really doesn't need it because of the other positions on this defense. And like Anthony Weaver, I don't think is going to go to multiple defensive tackle sets. Like, to me, I think there's more of a likelihood there's 3 edges on the field at one time than there is 2 defensive tackles. Like, that's just the versatility that this defense is going to have. So if they're going that route, what is the need for 7 defensive tackles? I could argue you only need to keep 5, and for him to keep 7 was a little bit of a surprise for me. Omar Kelly, I don't really agree with that, and I also don't think any of those defensive tackles are good enough to warrant being on this roster over other positions, which we'll get to. Like, a guy was cut from the cornerback room. Give a little spoiler, F it, I don't care. Ethan Bonner was cut from this 53-man roster projection. Like, I don't think that should be the case. Like, I think I would rather keep him for special teams rather than an extra 1 or 2 defensive tackles. So keeping 7 was a little bit wild to me. We're going to wrap up the 53-man roster projection by Omar Kelly. But first, make sure you get your Dolphins t-shirt combo. You see the number at the bottom of your screen right now? Yeah, $25 off this Dolphins t-shirt combo. I have mine. Get yours today. Chatsports.com/Dolphins combo is the link. It's in the description and comments of today's video. Only have medium larges, extra larges, and 2Xs available. So get yours now before they run out. $25 off, my goodness. Let's get into the linebacker room now because this one is interesting but also self-explanatory at the same time. The top three are a guarantee. David Long Jr., Jordan Brooks, and Anthony Walker Jr. I'm very high on this linebacker room, and especially on the inside. Like David Long Jr. does it all. Jordan Brooks is your thumper and run stopper. And Anthony Walker Jr. is one of the best coverage linebackers that I'd expect to see get a lot of snaps during third down and obvious passing down situations. The question is that fourth spot. And it was given to Duke Riley. Duke Riley, excuse me. And that would be my projection as well, because when you think of Channing Tindall, who is going to be fighting for that roster spot alongside Duke Riley, Tindall, the former third-round pick out of Georgia, 2 drafts ago, just has never been able to put it together. And I think his time's running out, man. I don't think the Dolphins are keeping more than 4 linebackers, and it's going to come down to Tindall and Riley for that final linebacker spot. And I have to lean Riley due to his experience and overall better production in the past with this Dolphins team. So, unfortunately, the former top 105 pick out of Georgia, probably not going to make the roster in his 3rd season. But maybe you disagree with me. Who makes the 53-man roster for the Miami Dolphins? If you think it is Channing Tindall, type CT. If you think it is going to be Duke Riley, type those DRs. I know we asked this question earlier on in the week, but it is one of the more pressing questions surrounding this Dolphins defense. Let's get into the cornerback room now, and this one I think is pretty similar to being a lock. You have Jalen Ramsey, you have Kendall Fuller, Kader Kohou, Nick Needham, Cam Smith. Those 5, I just don't see a world where those 5 aren't on the roster, especially since Cam Smith was your 2nd-round pick last year. Nick Needham is pretty solid as well, especially in the slot. And then Siran Neal there, he makes the team, which is interesting because I could see him being cut. And I mentioned a little bit earlier that Ethan Bonner's not on this cornerback room. He's a solid special teams guy. Like, I would keep Ethan Bonner due to that value in punt coverage, kickoff returns as well. Like, to me, it makes a lot of sense to keep Ethan. But is that sacrificing Siran Neal, or is that sacrificing a different position? That's the biggest question that I'm going to keep my eye on for as we progress through preseason training camp. 4 safeties make the team according to Omar Kelly: Javon Holland, Jordan Poyer, Marcus May, and then Elijah Campbell. I mean, you're keeping 4 safeties. It's absolutely necessary. It's a question of who that 4th safety is going to be. I think UDFA Mark Perry could give Campbell a little run for his money, but he's also starting training camp on an injury list, so not really sure he is going to be able to go full-time. But I do like this room, man. I think Holland and Poyer are one of your top 2 guys, and I think one of the best duos in the NFL at the safety position. You obviously signed Marcus May in free agency as well. Late in the game, you get him as a 3rd safety, which makes a lot of sense. Campbell gets shifted down to the 4th room. I think it's fine. Final 3 here: Jason Sanders, Blake Ferguson, Jake Bailey. No shock, kicker, punter, long snapper. These 3 are guaranteed to make the team. You might be asking yourself, though, I thought this was a 53-man roster projection. I just counted 55 names. You might be wondering why there are 55 names. I couldn't tell you. It's unbelievable. Omar Kelly, who does good work, great work, projected 55 guys in a 53-man roster projection article. Stunned me, folks. I don't know. So, listen, you heard 55 names be talked about today, and we heard some names not make the roster. Let's think about this. 2 names would have to go because you got to be 53. You're not 55. I counted 5 different times to make sure I didn't miscount. But my goodness, what a mistake there by Omar. Oh, it's all fun and games, though. And if you want to have more of a conversation around the Miami Dolphins with me, my DMs are open. At Nic_Rohloff is my handle. Go give me a follow. We're talking about the Fins on a daily basis. So hopefully I see you over there. And I'll see you tomorrow with another video. Go Fins.